In today's tutorial, I would like to show you some of the most utilized tools in Photoshop by combining photos to create a tree. I will be using the Quick Selection tool, the Spot Healing brush, the Brush tool, the Eyedropper tool, and the Dodge/Burn tool. Each of these tools will have a hotkey that is designated on your keyboard. I will also be demonstrating the use of layers in Photoshop and a few of the unique things you can do with your layers. Let's start by importing our photos. You can easily do this by selecting all of your photos from your location and drag and drop them onto your document in Photoshop. You will have to hit Enter for each photo so they can separate into individual layers. Since I am creating a tree, I took photos that I can use to trace, as well as photos up close that I can use as textures. You can divide the photos into different folders and name each layer as you progress. Next, I'll find the tree image that I like and begin tracing it into a new layer. I can use the Eyedropper tool, the I key for the shortcut, to copy the color of the bark. Next, I'll use the Brush tool, the B key, to begin tracing. You can change the size of the brush by using the square bracket keys. This will give your trunk and branches some more complexity. Once you have finished tracing, we are ready to add depth. We need to select a direction from where our light source is coming from, and we should try to stay consistent to it so that it looks natural. Select the Dodge tool, the O key, and begin making the left side of the trunk dark and the right side light. By clicking and dragging, you'll see that the image will get lighter. By holding the Alt key and clicking and dragging, you'll notice that the image gets darker. Holding the Alt key will toggle the burn brush. This allows for an easy switch from light to dark. I made the underside of the big branches dark and the top side bright. But with the small branches, I just randomized the lightness and darkness to make it look less flat and a little bit more natural. When you are finished adding depth, we can move on to the textures. Click the eyeball on the layer panel to make the tracing layer invisible. Now find the texture that you would like to use and duplicate it and move this texture outside of its folder. Next, we're going to delete the background by using the Quick Selection tool, the W key. You can skip this step if you do not have a background that you need to delete in your photo. Once you have the Quick Selection tool, begin brushing your texture and you will see a dotted line start to surround your texture. This will indicate where you've selected. If you need to get rid of some space, click the Subtract from Selection option at the top left and begin brushing the space that you need to take away from your selection. Now, once you're satisfied with your selection, you can right-click on the document and click Select Inverse. Finally, hit Delete on the keyboard and you should have deleted the background on your image. Make your tree tracing layer visible again and move your texture directly above your tracing layer. Now duplicate your texture layer by right-clicking and hitting Duplicate Layer. And do this several times until you've completely covered your tracing layer with duplicates of your texture. Once you have finished, you can select all the texture layers by holding Shift and clicking on each of them to combine them. Once you have all of them selected, right-click on the layers and select Merge Layers. Finally, for just some extra detail, we are going to clean up the places where the duplicates connect with the spot healing brush, the J key. Just click and drag on the places where the image clearly ends on the edge. This will attempt to make the texture look seamless. You may have to hit Ctrl Z a few times until you get something that looks a bit more natural. Next, we can mix the texture with the tracing. First, let's create a mask by right-clicking the texture layer and selecting Create Clipping Mask. For this to work, this layer must be directly above the tracing, with no other layers between them. Lastly, you can change the layer blending style by clicking the arrow next to Normal on top of the layer panel. I chose Soft Light so that you can still see the shadows of our tracing come through the image. As for the leaves, we can repeat all these previous steps, from the tracing to the dodging and burning, deleting the texture, background, duplicating and using the spot healing brush, and finally creating a clipping mask and choosing a layer blending style. For the leaves, I actually chose the hard light blending style because I just think it looked better. For even more dimension on the leaves, you can merge the texture layers with the tracing layers and duplicate it. Put that layer above the tracing of the tree and erase bits and pieces of it using a 0% hardness eraser, the E key. Just pick and choose random spots on this top layer to delete. This will give your leaves even more depth by making some of them appear a bit closer. Don't forget to save. You can hit Ctrl S as a shortcut to save your Photoshop file. Finally, you can go to Layer and Flatten Image down at the bottom. Then go to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. And this will save your image. All these techniques can be used to make countless illustrations and collages of anything you can imagine. Adobe also offers a free week trial to use Photoshop. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.